Hey everybody. So I'm trying out a live stream thing. We'll see if how it works out. So the other day I was on Facebook on one of the OSR groups, and someone was looking for suggestions to make travel over water interesting. They said they didn't want it to have to roll for random encounters every day, and they didn't want it to take multiple sessions, but at the same time, they just didn't want to, the players didn't want to just hand wave the whole thing. So one of my suggestions was that they could come across an island shrouded in mist, and there could be a little adventure there. So thinking about that, I decided that's not a bad idea. I'm going to create a map for that, and maybe I'll throw it into one of my games one day or what have you. I also realized that I had essentially just come up with the idea for the island from Jurassic Park, which, okay, why not? I'll steal it. I'll use it. It can be full of prehistoric creatures, or maybe giant apes like King Kong. We'll see. And of course, there might be a cult of serpent people or something like that. So we're going to use Wonderdraft. We're going to create this island, and it's going to be something interesting. So here's my Wonderdraft. Theme I'm using is adventure. We might play around with the themes a bit and see what works best, but for now we're just going to leave it like that. We're going to start off with creating the landmass. That's click on the side here, right there, the land, and that creates the landmass. Let's see. I don't have the brush on here. Check the. Oh wait, that's not landmass. What am I doing? That's for the generate. There we go. Okay, that's a bit too small of a brush for this. Bring it up a bit. There we go. Okay, so this map is going to be, right now I have the settings so that it's set to print on an 8.5 by 11. I'm not sure what the pixels is for that, but you can choose it when you open up Wonderdraft. So we're just going to do a little sort of landmass here. And go around. There. That looks like it'll work. Let's bring up our brush a bit so we can fill this in. All right. So I'm thinking, my ideas behind this was it could be like an undiscovered island in the middle of a sea or an ocean or something like that, shrouded in mist. Maybe there's lots of rocks around it, or sort of mountainous portions jutting out of the sea that ships wreck on. So there's probably going to be a lot of shipwrecks out there, and maybe that's why it's not discovered, because the shipwrecks, nobody ever makes it back to the mainland. Or maybe there could be rumors of this island from travelers, and it's a place where adventurers might want to go. However you want to do it, that works. Okay, so we have this blob looking here. I'll bring the brush down a bit. Now, it's a little smooth around the edges, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this button, which brings down the landmass, brings down the sea level, and we're just going to go around the edges. And it's going to create like these rough edges all over the place. Do that. And I might create little islands off the sides. That's fine. I create a little indent there. Basically, just going randomly and see what it creates. The computer's working a little slow. I don't think it's powerful enough to run stream and do this, but we're gonna make do. Like I said, this is sort of a test stream, so if it doesn't work out well, then I'll just have to pre-record these videos and save streaming for just chat or whatever. So I'm just making little circles or going in and out with my brush, create these kind of like rough edges around the water. So the landmass isn't just like one giant uniform blob. And we can fix them up later if we want to. Generally, when I do this, I go in, I'll do this, and then I'll go in and start like shaping inlets and bays and whatever, just to make it a little more interesting. Now, it all depends how big you want this island to be. Obviously, it's not going to be the size of a continent. So if we put our hex grids over it and we want to use it as sort of like a mini hex crawl area, I'm thinking maybe make it so it's maybe 5 or 6 hexes wide. Like a large enough island that you can imagine dinosaurs and whatnot living on it, but not so large that it would take years to traverse across, right? Let's go down. This is the most time-consuming part of it, is to do this part. All right. So you see how using this brush, it just makes it a little bit rougher around the edges, where like the sea is kind of washed away on the edge of the island. It's not smooth anymore. I'm thinking when I'm done this will probably be, I probably will end up using this at some point. I might even create the hex keys for it. And if people are interested, maybe I'll make it available for people to download and use in their own games if they want. But generally, the idea was just practice map making. Maybe some people were wondering about Wonderdraft or are unsure how easy it is to make maps on this. So that's why I wanted to do this stream. Probably could have used a larger brush. Maybe we'll go over it after and we'll fix up some areas as we want. But for now, almost there. We're just like creating these edges that are not uniform. You have little bits of land and stuff off to the side, and that's fine. Makes it a bit more sort of unique. All right, so we've got our edges, our shoreline, but it still looks kind of blobby. So let's make this a little more interesting. I'm going to up the brush size a bit, and I think, yeah, this looks like a good place right here. We're going to bring it in a bit and create sort of like an inlet. And you see, it's taking away that land, making it a bit more interesting. And I kind of like that. It's leaving all that. It's not erasing everything. It's leaving little bits of land that could be kind of like a rocky sort of area. Very hard to pass with boats. And this is a bit round, so we're going to sort of go in and take that down. All right, I'm going to cut it out, and then I'll erase that land after. Let's see, it's already looking a bit more interesting in shape. The last thing you want is just a big sort of blob. Even if you rough out the edges, it's not doesn't look super interesting, right? I mean, it all depends on the aesthetic you're going for. All right, so we have that. Let's erase some of this stuff here. We have another little inlet there. That works for me. I'm gonna erase this. And come back through. Just trying to erase some more of these. And you see, like, you'll see like some of these hash marks next to the water. That's the from the theme. That's the style of showing the shore of the water. We have that. Let's see, what else can we do here? Make this let's smooth this out a bit. Well, not smooth it out, but we're gonna sharpen this edge a bit. There we go. All right. Okay, so I think for now that works. Let's start putting on some ground, some color. So each theme, you'll know, like, depending on the theme you choose, you'll have different choices for the color. So I think this is going to be kind of a tropical, rainforesty kind of place. So I think we're going to go for like a deep green overall for the color. Let's yeah, we'll go with this brush. This is sort of like the faded brush is solid. This is sort of spotty. We're going to bring it up larger so we can cover a larger area at once. I'm just going to paint this out. That looks good. I like that. Now again, if we wanted to, we could create this as an entire continent. But for our purposes, it's going to be just an island. So a lot of the symbols, like the mountains we use, are going to be generally larger than I would typically use when I'm creating a continent. Just so you can see a little more detail and stuff. There we go. Bring it around. Just fill this in. So this is just all the base stuff we're going to do. And afterwards, we're going to go over. We're going to start creating a little more texture with it, with the colors. When we do the rivers, you'll see it'll look good. So I was thinking a lot of the games I've looked at, like Basic Fantasy role-playing game and White Box. Those are the two actual physical books I have. I have a lot of PDFs from other games that I've looked through. I haven't seen a race of serpent people, or at least like in the 5e, you have the 1T kind of thing where you have different levels of their transition between serpent people and more humanoid looking. I haven't seen a lot of that, so I think after I'm done the map, I'm going to maybe go in and create my own race of serpent people. And I think when I use them in my world, they're going to be located just on this map here. I think they're going to be like a sort of a cult of sort of worshippers of some kind of serpent god. It'll be something we're going to have to look at. Maybe I'll create them in a video or something so everyone can see. Okay, so we have our landmass, we have our colors, or at least the ground color. what we're going to do now is I always start with mountains, and then I do rivers, and then trees. And then I start layering the texture of the different colors of the ground. So I want a good sized mountain. We're going to do maybe large too. Let's try it. Let's try these large mountains. So these are penciled, which means that they're going to show up kind of as white or whatever the background color is. But then we're going to color them in afterwards. I'll show you how to do that. So we want placement density. I'm going to raise this up a bit. This is how many mountains are placed like randomly when you put them down. Placement rate. I'm going to raise this a bit too. All right. Symbol scale, maybe 100 is going to be too big. Bring it down to 70. What's that? Yeah, that looks good. All right. So we're going to bring these down. So you see they're coloring up the color of the the ground that I painted, but we can go back and we can recolor them, make them look a little bit better. All right, we're going to bring maybe a little offshoot of mountains here. That looks good. And I think it's going to break over there. Now, I'm not a pro at making maps look realistic. And quite frankly, I'm not overly concerned with making them super realistic, like geologically and stuff, and like how tectonic plates will hit each other and create mountains over millions of years. I kind of just go with what looks good. I do try and use some kind of realism, like I'm not going to put a river in the middle of nowhere that isn't flowing originally from a mountain or an elevated spot, because that's just not something that happens. Even if you're not using realism, there's still like gravity. There's still some physics in your fantasy world, right? All right, we're going to switch to these smaller mountains, and we're just going to put some of these in here. Just a little on the side. Let's create these little tiny mountain ranges off the sides of this big one. All right. So I think maybe we'll put in some hills. I'm gonna have one small area of hills, I think. Just off to the side here. Let's bring the size of these up a bit. All right. All right, so you got these little hills here. Sort of a little hilly area. Don't need to go crazy with it. Maybe we'll put some next to the mountains as well. Kind of look like the same size as the small mountains, but that's fine. It's whatever. When you're creating this, just go however you want to. Do whatever you need and whatever feels right? So I think we're going to paint these mountains first before I put in the water. So we're going to go to our paintbrush. When we choose it, we can go down here to filter. Right now you have all selected. So whatever I paint is just going to paint everything uniformly. It'll paint mountains, trees, whatever. So I'm going to unselect that, and then I'm going to select just mountains. I think we're going to go with, actually, you know what? I'm going to create my own. I want it to be a little bit lighter than that. Let's see. There we go. I think we'll go with that. So you can just add your own colors here, and then it'll add that color. That's actually not that much lighter than the other one, but you can always just press the plus button if you want to add different colors that aren't available to you. So we have mountain selected. We have this. Now, because it's only selecting mountains, it doesn't matter how big our brush is. We can just go over, and we'll just start painting the mountains. It'll paint the hills. Actually, I won't paint the hills. The hills are part of the mountains. The hills, I guess, are part of the land, which makes sense. So we have that. Kind of dark, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to create another lighter one. Bring this up here. Okay. But we're going to bring the opacity down. So it's going to be, this color is going to be almost see-through, but it'll add, instead of just painting the whole thing, we're just going to like click in different spots. So it's not going to be the whole mountain range that's colored the same uniformly. You'll have like little spots where some are lighter than others. All right, I think that looks good. So next we're going to go up to our menu here on the side, and we're going to pick up water. So here you can have your water appearance. This is your rivers, your lakes. You have a brush where you can paint it. I don't generally use that, but maybe I'll try playing around with it one day. And then you have, for some reason, your windrose tool is in with the water. But for now, we're just going to go with this. Our width is 4. We're going to see how big this looks, and then if we want to change it, we'll just delete and change it after. Oh, that's fine. That works. Yeah, okay. So we're going to go to the edge. Oops. We're going to go to the edge of the water here, edge of the land. We're going to double click. And that'll create our river. That's actually a little thinner than I want it to be. We're going to bring that up a bit. So you can change your width, your roughness, and your meander distance. Your meander distance is how much does it twist and turn. So we've raised our width a bit. Let's do another river here. Let's see how this comes out. Again, I'm trying to consider the scale. I don't want this to be, oops, double click. That looks a little funky there, but that's fine. I don't want this to be a giant landmass, because otherwise why would no one have discovered it, right? Well, right now it's looking like it would be pretty big. Well, that's fine. Maybe the mountains aren't that big. And then when we put our overlay on it, we can adjust how big we want the hexes. All right, so let's continue with these rivers. And bring this one down here. Actually, pull it up so you can make the rivers connect to each other. So you can have rivers flowing from different points on the mountains, and then they'll connect like that. I'll bring another one here. All right, I'm going to bring this width up a bit, and I want to try and consider my scale. And right now, it's looking a bit like it's going to be a bit bigger than I expected it to be. However, we want dinosaurs to be on here, right? So dinosaurs are giant reptiles. You're going to need a lot of space. I'll bring another one from here. So I connect to that river. Bring this. There's a few rivers on this island. That's fine. Lots of fresh water if you get lost on there. At the very least, there's lots of fresh water. There's going to be lots of other things that will try and kill you, but it won't be dehydration. Now, generally, you won't see things like this very often in nature, where the river breaks off from its. Oops. No. Well, okay. Let's go just undo that. There we go. Undo. Right. You won't have things like this where the river breaks off from itself and creates another river. You can do it if you want, but oh God. Sometimes it doesn't click properly. You can do it if you want. I mean, it's a fantasy world, do whatever you want, but generally in reality you won't have it. It'll happen sometimes depending on the land, like maybe something caused the river to go that way. But for now, we're not going to do that. However, if you want to make a tributary, which is when you have sort of one river and then it splits off, you can do that with the land tool. However, right now we're not going to do that. Okay, so we have our mountains, we have our rivers. Next, we're going to go back to symbols. This is where you find your mountains and your buildings and your trees. Now, this is going to be a sort of jungle place. What do we have here? Oak, pine. No, we have palm trees. Maybe put palm trees along the edge. Hatched pines. I think we're going to go with these things. Yeah, these willows. That looks like it's going to be very. Well, that's just way too big. Let's bring the scale down a bit. Yeah, it's still too big. 45. Yeah, let's try 30. How's that? All right, that's not too bad. So now we're going to do forests. I'm thinking it'll probably be mostly forest. There'll be a couple of plains or like open areas, but we're going to do mostly forests. And like the mountains, it's going to place them sort of randomly. You just click once and hold it down, and you go all over. We're going to keep them off the edge of the mountains, off the edge of the rivers. You can get close to it, but we're not going to go over the rivers, right? And right to the edge here. I think maybe at some point we're going to add a bit of beach land, maybe just a sandy part. You know, because when people get shipwrecked, you always wind up on a beach, right? Especially islands like this, the water is just going to wash away a lot of the vegetation along the edge. So we're going to fill this forest in, place all the forests, and then we're going to repaint an area to be our sandy beach. It'll be a tropical paradise, except that there's going to be giant lizards trying to kill you and a cult of the snake god, which might sacrifice you. So that looks good. Now again, it's taking on the color of the ground behind it. So we're going to go over after, and we're going to repaint them so they stand out a bit. Because we want our forest to pop, right? If everything's the same color, then it's going to be hard to discern what's what. But we can totally just do this, and then we'll repaint. To make it more interesting. Then we got that river is going through this big forest here. And you know, in some places, if you want to, you can put the forest over the river. There's no reason why the river can't go through the forest. The reason I tend to not do that is because once I start putting the trees over top of the river, is that it's going to obscure it. You're not going to be able to see. So I want to be able to see that the river's there, just for, you know, play sake. We can always say that it goes through the forests or the jungle or what have you, and that it's, you know, surrounded by trees. But for me, I want to, otherwise I might not realize that the river's there, and, you know, if they're going through there, they might not know. So I think we're going to do some more here. We're going to kind of go randomly here instead of just filling up the entire area. It's looking pretty good. You might be thinking, well, maybe if the trees are that big, maybe the mountains should be bigger. But you can always say, well, maybe the mountains aren't that big. Maybe it's more of more of a smaller obstacle than a giant mountain range that needs to be traversed. Yeah. I keep it away from the shoreline this side. Go up and bring it up here. I'm keeping this pretty simple. If I was going to be spending hours doing this map, I would be picking different trees, and especially if I'm doing a world map or a continent map, where it's going to have different biomes and it'll have different types of trees growing everywhere, then I would definitely be clicking on different trees. But for our purposes for this, I think just using the willows is going to give us that sort of indication that it's a jungle, and we're not going to worry too much about it being realistic with like different trees. I just want it to look sort of like a rainforest jungle for now. And I don't think if I were to use this in a game, I don't think any of my players would be like, you should have different trees. It looks all uniform. But and if they do, well, they can make a map. All right, so we've got our forest down. We're going to repaint it. So we're going to go back to our land tab here. And we are going to choose a paint. Now, for the ground we used before, we used that really dark one. So for this, I want to use something lighter like this. That's really going to make it pop. We're going to bring the opacity up a bit. Not too much, more like 0.5. And we'll see how this works. Oh, no. I have it on mountains. I want it on trees. It's a good thing I didn't go over any of the mountains. That would have been an absolute disaster. Okay, it would have been easily fixed, but there we go. Look at that. It's nice, bright green vegetation. You could always make it greener. You could choose your own color and make it really bright green, but for now, this is going to work out quite nicely. All right. I think that's good. Next, those beach areas I was talking about. Let's do this. I want to check, see what this color looks like. And we're going to go ground. Remove the trees part. All right, let's check it over here. Bring the brush down. I don't want the brush to be too big because then I'm just going to start painting things I don't want to paint. That's good. How's this look? It's not too bad. A little over there. Maybe it's just a little beachy area. It leads into like some tall grass or something. And all this part I'm going to do. There you go. Yeah. That's not bad. So a nice thing I was thinking about with this map is you could use this as a completely self-contained sort of hex crawl over the course of several sessions. You can make it just like an entire adventure, or you could base an entire campaign on it if you wanted to. Like maybe your players got shipwrecked on here and they have to survive. That might be an interesting campaign idea. They just survive on this island. A bunch of creatures that are trying to kill you, and figure out a way to get off. And if you want to go for like a sort of survival, oops, there we go. I'm going to do that. I screwed up. I'm going to go with this one, and because the one problem I have with Wonderdraft is, well, it's not so much a problem. It's just something you got to take into consideration, is that it considers rivers as land. So if you're painting, it's going to paint right over the rivers. So if you're painting your ground or whatever, it's going to paint right over that, which is kind of frustrating. So like something like this, where I'm doing the doing like a beach line, probably something that I should have done first and then done the rivers, because rivers will go over the painted beach line, but if you paint, it'll paint over the rivers. Unfortunately, sometimes you get these ideas while you're making the map, and you've already done one thing, and so you just got to be careful of what you're doing afterwards. So we're going to do this little. I think we're going to go mostly around the whole island with this sort of beachfront. It's going to be a tropical paradise. But yeah, we're going to go around the whole island and create this sort of beach land. Some places there'll be more than others. I think maybe one side we're going to do it's going to be just like a rocky sort of cliff. But we're not going to have beach there. It's just going to be in the mountains. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. Yeah, so that's not so bad. Maybe we'll fix it up. It looks a little uniform there. Don't really want. You want to make it sort of. You're never going to have just a flat or perfectly curved line. So you want it kind of to come in and out of it. That looks okay for now. So we're going to go back to symbols. So now I've had that brilliant idea that I'm going to do sort of a rocky outcrop on the side. We're going to use these small mountains. And we're going to do this all over the side here. Actually, you know what? We're going to bring scale up because that's too small. I want it to be big. Yeah, I want it to like be obvious that you're not going to be able to sort of just land a ship on that, right? I want it to be like, okay, this is a sort of an impassable area. We're going to have to repaint them too, but that's fine. It only takes a second. There we go. Look at this. And you're not getting in there. All right, so we go back to our land. Where's my cursor? There it is. We're going to go back to our land. We have our cursor, and we're going to do. I think we're just going to go straight with this. Click on, make sure we pick mountains and not ground. And we're going to paint these right here. There we go. Oh yeah, that looks good. There we go. Okay, so next, we're going to put a little texture around the mountains. So we're going to go with this dark one. I'll show you why. So we're going to take this brush, which is like the sort of, it fades out. Our brush size, we're going to make even smaller, I think. We're going to ground, take it off mountains, and we're going to bring our opacity down even further. So what this is going to do is it's going to make it kind of look like sort of the ground is a little more rocky. Well, maybe the opacity is a little too... no, that's okay. So you see how it's sort of put this little dark screen along the mountains, sort of creating kind of a shadow, but also indicating that maybe the ground here is not as lush. And we're going to do something else with the rivers too after. See, it's almost unnoticeable, but it kind of makes this little part where you're just creating sort of a darker ground, kind of makes everything else pop out even more. I'm thinking there's probably going to be, well, we said we were going to have the dinosaurs and stuff on this island for some fun random encounters for any players or any campaigns you're having here or adventures. It's also going to be the home of a race of serpent people that are maybe they sacrifice sailors who get shipwrecked here. I'm going to go over this area here. Maybe they sacrifice the sailors that get shipwrecked to their god. I think maybe wouldn't be out of place to put some ruins on here. Maybe you could have ruins with a couple of levels of dungeon. And that way you're creating like this sort of mini campaign area that you can plop into your adventure if your players end up going on a voyage by sea. You just toss it in and be like, hey, so you guys find yourself on an island and you're now getting attacked by a Tyrannosaurus Rex. So it's fun. Well, it's fun for the game master. Maybe less fun for the players. So now we've created this sort of shadow going along the mountains. We're going to do the same thing with the river. We're going to make the land along the river a little greener. So let's go here. Let's go to our green. I don't want it crazy green. So the theory behind this is that it's going to be a little greener because, you know, you've got fresh water, which is going to be feeding the vegetation, right? So we create some lush grass along the edge of it. Again, we're going to keep the opacity really small, and we're just going to go along the edge here. We're not going to go too crazy on it. I'm just going to sort of bring it in. Just like that. It's creating a bit of like texture to the world. You know, and it's making all these little elements sort of pop out a bit more. So what happens? I want to see something. If I just go straight over the river, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know why I was doing it with sand, but with this green, it's working quite well. So you got this like making the rivers pop a bit more. And of course, if it's going through the river is going through the beachfront, you might have a bit of vegetation on either side of it. There's nothing wrong with having some larger areas, more lush sort of grass. And I think, in terms of landmass, that's looking pretty good. So we're going to go back to our symbols. And we're just going to place a couple of things, some like points of interest for the players to find. So we have these rocks, we have a waterfall. Let's throw a waterfall in here. Let's try this. No, it's not going to work. It need to be on. There we go. Put it right there. It should match up pretty nicely. There you go. No, I got to paint it with my ground brush the one we use for the mountains. I'm going to go with this one. Nope. Not ground, mountains. So another thing is you got to always be conscious of what you're actually painting. Just bring the opacity up. It's just the ground is showing through the other side. Oh, that's why. Say I'm not a professional with this program yet. This is a symbol, not. There we go. It looks a little mossy. That's fine. That works for what we need it for. All right, we're gonna go back to symbols. So symbols, you can click on this little castle, and you're gonna have lots of things like you have these waterfalls and mines. We're not gonna put any mines because who would really be mining on this island? But we're just going to click all here so we can see everything. We have bridges, which we're not going to use. We have dragons and some things to indicate different monsters you might find, towns, villages. Again, we're not going to use any of those because there's not going to be any towns or villages on here. However, you have some different trees, like some dead trees, your farms. These are like rock walls, I think. Oh, there's clumps of houses. All right. What I want, though, is there are some ruins. So let's see if we can find the ruins without having to. Let's just use this colored one. No, that's fine. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put another waterfall. Put this here. There we go. And put it right there. There we go. Let's make it look like there's water coming off the mountain there. Here we go, some ruins. Okay, so I think we're going to go with this thing. The scale, what does it look like on the scale? Oh, it's pretty big. I think that's fine. I think we're going to put this ruins. Maybe we'll put them here, right there near the mountains. So that way, if that snake cult we were talking about, maybe they're on this side of the mountains, on the western side of the mountains, whereas all the really vicious creatures are maybe on the eastern side of the mountains in the jungle. Maybe that's how they protect themselves from all of that. And just for the sake of it, why don't we? What is this? This looks interesting. Let's how are we going to use this? This could be like a temple or something. Maybe a ruined temple. You know what? I'm going to put this in the forest right there. Might be a little obscured, but there we go. Alright, so you can kind of see it there. That works. I think for how big this island is really going to be, I think those ruins and the other temple, I think that'll work nicely. Maybe the temple's got like stairs or something that go underground, or even the ruins. You can create a dungeon for that, or a dungeon for each of them if you really want to get crazy. So I think for now, this is actually looking pretty good. We're going to go for the overlay. We're going to go down here to our grid tool. And because I want this to be a hex map, we're going to go with pointed hex. So we get the hex like this. So if we go with a typical 6-mile hex, like that island's huge. So maybe we're going to bring it up a bit. Let's think like that. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's like what, 50 miles across? I think that's 6 times 8. No, it's less than that. Like 48 miles across, which is fine. I think that'll work just fine. And there we have our hex map there. I think that's looking pretty good. I think you can use that as sort of an adventure location. Oh, there was one thing I did not do that I wanted to do. Remember I said that there was maybe mountains jutting out of the ground? I think we're going to put that in. We're going to put these large mountains here. And we're going to bring the symbol size up. We're going to make them like big mountains sticking out of the water in some place. Maybe in a couple places, like here, put one there, put one there. Kind of like that. Does it make sense? Maybe, maybe not. But this is our fantasy world, and we can do whatever we want. Right? I think so. All right, we're going to paint them so they kind of match the other mountains, because right now it just looks like desert mountains in the middle of the water, which doesn't make any sense. So we're going to pick this, click on mountains, unclick symbols. All right, let's paint this. There we go. Sometimes I find especially on my computer, that Wonderdraft's kind of slow and doesn't like the cursor and where the paint marker are don't really match up. Maybe we'll do a little bit of land. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go on this tool here, and this is what this is going to do, is going to raise the land around the mountains. It's going to kind of blend into the water a bit better. Let's think. There you go. You see, it's sort of creating that little landmass around the mountains. That's kind of what we want, because otherwise it doesn't really blend. And it just kind of looks like mountains floating on top of the water. So we create this little landmass around the mountains, and we're going to make it look like it's actually part of, actually kind of like coming up out of the water. You can make the landmass around them as big as you want. You can make them like almost like, if you see that little group of mountains at the southernmost mountains, it looks like there's enough land there that you could actually like wash up on shore, which is fine. Just do it however you want. If it's little sort of islands around, then why not? Maybe they shipwreck on that, and maybe they have to figure out a way to get to this mainland, and maybe it's just full of sharks. That'd be pretty awesome, right? So I think we're done. This looks pretty good. I think I'm definitely going to probably use this at some point. If people are interested in, getting a copy of this for their own adventures, I'll see what I can do with making that available. Maybe I'll post it on a Facebook group, or I'll make it available through a Dropbox or something like that. People can take and print out. The other thing too, I'm just going to show this quick near the end, is so we chose our theme, which was our adventure theme. But now if I go back to theme, I can go through all these themes. So if I want to use black and white to print, I can. Watch what happens. But because I should move this off to the side. Because I painted everything, obviously as color, but it's not as bright, so you have a bit more. You're not going to be using as much ink. Now let's go through all the themes and see. Maybe we'll find one that we like even better. Let's try Eastward. Oof, no, I don't think I'm a fan of that. Feudal. That's very, very dark. Almost looks like it looks like an island in space almost. Imagination. I think I like this one. This is one of my favorite ones. Yeah, I like that one. Paper usually looks pretty good. That's interesting. It kind of looks like that old stained paper, and it's been colored on. Again, if you're using other colors from a different set, it's not going to change the paint. You're going to be left with that paint, so sometimes it won't match up properly. So if you have, like, say, the paper, all this color looks kind of out of place. So you gotta consider that. You kind of have to go through your themes before you start and decide what you want to do. That looks kind of cool. That looks good. The other thing too is I didn't show they have symbols for clouds. I didn't put it on because I didn't want to obscure the map. But you can actually put clouds on your map. So if we wanted this to be a really sort of mist-covered island, we could do that. Just cover it in clouds. Terra's usually a pretty good one too. It's very bright blue. The colors on Terra pop a lot. They're very bright. And you have Worn, which is the last one, which looks not bad. I like the coastline on Worn. Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave this on that one. I'm going to leave it like that. Maybe I'll just quickly show the clouds. And go to these symbols. I think it's these ones. What one is it? I think it's Rocks and More. I think it's this one. No, it's not that. Ruins, colored. Modern buildings, inked castles. trees, custom colors, custom color, compass rose. That's another thing you put on. You put on a compass rose if you really want to. Maybe it's not that. Maybe it's mountains. Oh yeah, there's mountains. All right, so we have these clouds here. Fluffy clouds, sketched clouds. Now let's try. Actually, you know what? These fluffy clouds. This is one. Not comic clouds though. Let's try this. I think. Yeah, so you can't change the opacity, so it's just going to be like. I'll just put it here. It's going to be like that. So then if you put it over top, well, like it hides into it. But you can have it, think, layers. No. I thought you could, so I know when you do your roads, you use the paths tool over here to create roads. You can decide if it's going under the symbols or over the symbols. I thought you could do that with this, but you can't. And we're going to delete those clouds. So for the time being, we're just going to say it's covered in mist. We don't need to necessarily illustrate it. So I think that looks pretty good for now. I think that's going to work out nicely. We have lots of options. We have hexes. If we wanted to, we can number the hexes. And actually, we can't really see the hexes right now because of that. And you know what? I'm going to go back to the original theme we had. You know, sometimes if the theme you originally make it on is probably the theme you should stick with. That's not the one I had. Maybe it was imagination I started with. Again, there you go. So it was imagination I started with. Okay. We see the hexes. So if we wanted to use whatever tool we use for hex crawls, whether we use the hex crawl tools that come, or the random encounter tools that come with, if we're say playing basic fantasy or DCC or OSE or what have you, you can use that. There's a multitude of books out there with random tables for encounters and creating dungeons and stuff. And maybe we're going to go through. Maybe I'll do a video where we're going to create a dungeon for one of these places, or even create our own encounter tables. That'd be fun too. But anyway, that's it for me. I think we created a great map. Hopefully you get something out of it. Maybe you'll be able to create your own map. Wonderdraft is a lot like Incarnate. If you've ever used Incarnate online, Wonderdraft is a lot like that. Incarnate has a lot more assets. One thing I'm not a fan of with Incarnate is, well, there's two things. Is the subscription model. I like paying for things once and I own it. And you have to be online for Incarnate. Wonderdraft I like because I can just download the program and I can use it on my computer wherever I am, but if I have internet access or not. So that's always, it's always ideal. I still use Incarnate from time to time. It's a pretty powerful program. But for now, I'm having a lot of fun with Wonderdraft and it's doing everything I need it to do. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Hopefully you'll get something out of it. And if you want me to post this map somewhere, let me know. And I'll make it available for you guys to use on your own adventures. So that's it for me. I'm Tristan. This is Heroes in Homebrew. like and subscribe if you liked it. That'd be great. If you subscribe if you like it, that'd be great. And see you next time. See ya.